hanging out to hear about Facebook ads. And to everybody who watches the recording, glad to have you here as well. So I'm going to dive right into it because anytime I have to try and do a talk in 45 minutes, it's tricky because I'm a talker. But hopefully I'll have some time for questions as well afterward. But I'll also like hang out on the ship afterward too. And if anybody has any follow-on questions, we can chat about them there. So without further ado, let me get this all going. Start my PowerPoint. And then screen share. And hopefully everything just works the way it's supposed to. All right. Wait, I gotta do one more thing. I have to find this window and move it to the side of the screen so I can see chat. All right. I can see chat. Can you guys see my screen? Then we can just throw a message in the room chat and I'll see that. Awesome. All right. And that, since you answered my question, that means you can hear me as well. So you know who I am. I'm Malorie Cooper, and I'm here to talk to you about Facebook ads. And I'm, one of the Writing Wives, which is a business that my wife, Jill, and I started to help authors meet success. And it kind of had an interesting beginning because there was a point in my career where I had kind of fallen into despair that I wasn't going to be able to make it. It was towards the end of I want to say it was either towards the end of 2020 or right towards the beginning of 2021. I was having a hard time focusing and concentrating, writing, and it was taking me a lot longer to do work. I'd also put out 127 books in 5 years, so I burned myself out. And as a result, I was seeing income dip down to like around 150 to 200,000 a year, which, well, for many people, that sounds like a ton. For where we live and where we had our daughter going to school and whatnot, it was getting to the point where I'm like, gee, like if it keeps dipping, I might need to go get a job working for the man instead. And I started looking for jobs and filling out applications, and I actually had a panic attack at the thought of having to work in a corporate environment anymore. And a bunch of authors said to me, they're like, Mal, your version of failure would be my version of wild success, and you have so much to teach that you shouldn't just give up on it. And you can, there's other ways you can help the community and still be involved in writing. And that actually turned into a whole business that we now run. And now I actually have time to write again, and my mojo's back too. So it kind of ended up being a nice win-win. So that's what we do. We help authors, get their books out there in front of more people. And we do it through things like this. We do it through consulting. We actually run ads for people like an agency. And at this point, I'm not entirely sure exactly how much money we manage, but we manage in the millions of dollars a year in ads for a lot of authors collectively. So we see a lot of things in the ad space. We analyze a lot of ads. We look at a lot of things from different ways, and we spot trends and commonalities and stuff like that. And then we have the budget and the funds to actually test and experiment. So we've learned a lot. So I love doing things like this because I get to share our learnings with everybody. So anybody who's run Facebook ads has learned that there's a lot of information out there. You can lose yourself in all of the data that's being thrown at you pretty quickly. And what I'm here to tell you is that you actually don't need to pay attention to most of the data that you're looking at, especially if you're running traffic ads, just sending people to a retailer. There's different data you look at if you're sending people to your own website, like a Shopify site for direct sales. But even then, there's not that much that you actually have to look at. So we're going to help you with that. But first, I'm just going to show you, the eye chart that is Facebook half the time. There's so much stuff you can look at. And that was this is what sort of most people see at the beginning. And if you want to turn on more data and get more information, you can have all these other columns. And you can easily have 20 to 30 columns of data for an ad. And kind of get yourself into analysis paralysis. And that's one of the things I really want to help people avoid. A lot of times people see too much data with their ads and they're just like, screw it, this is too hard. I can't tell if I'm wasting money or not. I'm just turning them off. And I want to help you not do that, because I've worked with so many authors who've built careers after learning enough about ads that they could tell what's working from what's not and get things really going. So, of course, don't forget that we have attribution link data to look at now as well. But this actually, even though it's like AMS data in that it's really hard to process. It's not super timely, and it can be somewhat inaccurate. It's still significantly better than just guessing like we had to before. So really, when it comes to analyzing your ads and looking at them, there's three pillars. There's your ad health and performance on the Facebook side. There's your conversion, which we measure in Amazon attribution links or on your direct sales website. And there's profit. And we have to, if you look at these three things individually, and then finally as a whole, once you've assessed them all individually, no step of the process is too complicated. So that's what we're going to talk about here. So the first thing I want to get into is how ads work. And we're talking, of course, about how Facebook ads work specifically. Other platforms have their own nuances. So ads have, whenever you first start creating an ad in Facebook, Facebook will say, what's your campaign objective? And your campaign objective be normally, like most of the time, in fact, like a couple of years ago, pretty much everybody just was traffic and ran their ads to Amazon and the other retailers, Apple, Barnes & Noble, and all that. But now that we've started to get a little more savvy, a lot of authors are doing direct sales on Shopify or Wix or WooCommerce or Squarespace or anything like that. We are now choosing other things like like sales for our campaign. And that what you choose matters. I should have gone to the slide while I was talking because it would have given you a visual cue for things. So in here, we've got, and by the way, you might see this list in the opposite order of how I'm showing it. It's on different accounts. It shows it shows one way, and some accounts it shows the other way, and I have no idea why Facebook does that. In this scenario, we're seeing it from most humans to fewest humans, because when you choose the objective, that's the first step in Facebook choosing who they're going to show your ad to. Awareness ads basically show to anybody, and Facebook isn't expecting anybody to take any action. It's just like the kind of ad that like Coca-Cola or Tide is going to run, you know? I mean, I guess I used to always joke that like Coca-Cola never expects anybody to see an ad for Coke and then one click a six-pack and have it delivered, but that's actually kind of a thing that we do now. So, but even so, they just kind of want you to think about Coke. So the next time you're ordering groceries, you'll get some Coke as well. Or it's Apple reminding you that they exist, you know, so that when your next plan renews with your carrier, or you're choosing carrier, you might pick an Apple phone instead of an Android phone. They're not expecting any action, and on Facebook side, they're like, hey, we're just going to show this to anybody with a pulse. You know, that's their threshold for that. Traffic ads are shown to people who are known to click links. So this is like one level up from having a pulse. Are these people going to actually click something? People who never click on any external ad links on Facebook are unlikely to see your traffic ads. Engagement ads, of course, are people who will actually click that chat button and chat with somebody. Leads are for getting, someone to fill out a form and provide some information. And so if you choose leads, Facebook is only going to show this ad to people who are known to fill out leads, or it thinks they might have a reason to fill out a lead. App promotion obviously has its own special caveats that don't matter to us. And then sales, lastly, is Facebook is going to show this ad, more likely show this ad to people who are going to buy something and are known to buy things. Now, as we move up the chain, it's not like Facebook is only ever going to show an ad to someone who's purchased something through Facebook before, but that's just going to be the first people it goes for. So sort of your pool of low-hanging fruit gets smaller, because of course, if they never showed ads to anybody who had never purchased, the system would never have gone off the ground. But it is very unlikely that if there's somebody that they've shown lots and lots of sales ads to in the past and that person never even clicked, it's very unlikely that person's ever even going to see the ad, which is good, actually. We want that. We want Facebook to make those decisions and not spend our money showing ads to people that don't care. So these matter, and what you pick in here matters. Like I said, most of the time we're going to pick traffic or sales. However, if you're going to run an ad to like a reader magnet that you have up on BookFunnel, you should run a lead ad, and then you can actually track conversion, and you can see like how much money it's costing you per person that downloads your book rather than just per click. And Facebook will then optimize for people that download, and actually does the same thing with sales too. Whenever someone goes and buys something on your website, provided you have the Facebook pixel installed, that information comes back to Facebook, and they're like, cool, let's find more people like this who have behaviors like that person. And then the same thing for leads. If someone goes to BookFunnel, downloads your book or Story Origin, if you use them, then Facebook is going to say, oh, I want to find more people like that person who did the conversion event. The interesting thing with traffic, when we're saying people to the retailers, is that Facebook doesn't care what happens after the person clicked. That's the end of their obligations, like, to get you traffic. And they're like, yay, we did it, and they're not concerned if it's good traffic or bad traffic, because you just said get traffic, and that's whether or not they do something else is entirely on you. Facebook doesn't measure that in any way, shape, or form. So it does affect like how they optimize the ad, and it does affect sort of where the platform sees its obligation end. And one of the things you might have picked up on this, by the way, as I mentioned that, is that the kind of large-scale optimization that Facebook is doing with these ads is not doable by humans. AI are running behind the scenes on this, making a lot of decisions about who's going to see the ad and whatnot. And that AI can be good, and that AI can be, frankly, pretty terrible as well. So we're going to talk a bit about that when we talk about audiences next, and even more when we talk about creative, because it's really important that you nail some of these elements. Otherwise, the AI that are trying to do the targeting and assessment can go off the rails and kind of ruin your ad. All right, so audiences. Let's talk about that. So that's, of course, on the ad set when you're creating an ad. And I'm not walking you guys through, by the way, the whole process of creating ads. I kind of assume that you know that, or you can like look it up pretty easily. I also have a book out called Help My Facebook Ads Suck that will walk you through the process of setting up an ad. This is more for like some of the more like what to do once you have the ad up and running, right? And also some advanced type thoughts about what you're making the ad. So when you create an ad now, when you're on the ad set tab, you're going to see these two boxes for your audience. And the interesting thing with this setup here is that basically Facebook will ignore everything that you put in the bottom box. And the bottom box is where you're going to select things like gender, and your age range is in the bottom box, plus all of your detailed targeting for the audience is all in that bottom box. And it can be entirely ignored by Facebook. In the top box, you do set a minimum age, but you don't set a maximum age. I think the minimum you can pick is like only up to 30. And then you can pick a gender up there, and you can pick your location and the language, and that's it. So with this when you run ads in this particular setup, you're basically letting the AIs just roll with it. And one of the ways I know that Facebook's targeting AIs aren't great is that it has a strong propensity of showing romance ads to men, especially if there's a pretty woman on the picture for your romance ad. You're going to get way more men than women seeing that. And it's not really going to help you sell books. So I really recommend not doing this and clicking that link there that says switch to original audience options. Thank you, Alexa. Just letting me know what's going on. So the box, you click that and a little box will pop up. And the blue button says use Advantage plus audiences. And if you click that, it stays the same. So if you click the gray button, they really push you to use this new system. But it's not as good, at least not for what we do. Like if you're doing something that you can like advertise to everybody, like you sell toothbrushes, everybody needs a toothbrush. Doesn't really matter what age they are, what gender they are, what kind of books they read. The system works great. It's fine. But when you're being much more targeted like we are, it's not great for us. And that's something to keep in mind too, is that Facebook advertising system isn't built for us. So there's some stuff in here where you're like, well, why can't we use that? It's like, because we're not a multi-million-dollar company running ads that we're trying to blanket the entire population with. So this is what you want to see when you're looking at your audiences. You want to see the screen that looks like this, and that's going to let you pick the right kinds of audiences. All right, so a couple things I want to chat about briefly in why your ad never shows to as many people as you think it will. So if we look at the selection I've made up top here, and also we're talking about broad targeting too. So some people have been saying a lot lately to run your ads and just target everyone and let Facebook sort it out. Like, pick your age range, pick your location, and then your gender, and just roll with it. And you'll see up at the top there that 100 million people are in this audience, women over 30 in the United States. However, down below, I narrow that down to women who read fiction. And we drop from 100 million to 43 million people at best. And so you can see there that like half of the people that I might target with a super broad targeting system selection don't read books, so far as Facebook can tell. And that's since they know a lot about us, they're probably right that those people don't read books. And so if you're going to be running an ad and you fire it up using the top selection and you send it off out into the wild, Facebook puts the ad in what's called a learning phase, and it's in the learning phase until it gets like maybe like 1,000, 1,500 impressions. Well, 1,500 impressions is a pretty small percentage of 100 million people. It's entirely possible that in the learning phase for that ad, it might never show to a single person who reads books. And some people are like, well, the AI can figure it out. And my response is, can it though? Because it keeps showing romance ads to guys. And while there are some men who read romance, it's like it'll show like 80% men, 20% women. I have seen trying broad targeting chew through a lot of money for people. There are some genres where you can get away with it more, like thrillers. Men and women both read thrillers fairly evenly. A few more women than men read thrillers. That's actually true across almost with reading in general, but women read it a bit more than men do. It's like a 55-45% situation. But I really feel like, so if you really do want to like try really broad targeting as an experiment, at least narrow down by people who read, and then send it out off into the wild from there. One thing you do want to keep in mind though is if you write stuff like you're writing BDSM, you're writing reverse harem, you're writing like black magic, occult kind of crazy stuff where you've got like mages and wizards and all sorts of stuff like that, super broad targeting can go badly for you because if the wrong people see it and report your ad, Facebook will shut down your ad. Now, it's unlikely that they'll actually shut down your account. You have to like cross very specific lines for them to do that. But you also just really don't want your ad that you got running, it's finally working really well, to be shut off because a bunch of people who object to your content see it. So narrowing your targeting down can still be really important if you don't write something that has super broad appeal. So there's another reason why not everybody that you've selected in your massive 50 million person audience will ever see it. And you'll know this because you'll have an ad running for a couple of months and your audience is like 30 million and the frequency is starting to go up, and the frequency number is the number of times a given person has seen your ad. And you're like, why is my frequency getting up into 3 or 4 when I've got this massive audience? Why is Facebook showing the same ad over and over again to these people when there's so many more new people to see it? And that's because there's a hierarchy to who Facebook shows ads to, because they can charge people more money when they're selling a more expensive product. At the top of this pyramid, we've got people who are buying a small country. You better believe they're only seeing ads for small countries. I don't even know what those look like, right? Then people like maybe looking for a new house, or a new lake house, buying their second Audi. Maybe people buying like they're a new washing machine or something like that. All of those companies are willing to pay $2, $3, $4, $10, $15, $20, $50 a click for like the right client, for a well-qualified client. Obviously we are not. And then all the way down to the very bottom where you have this thin little slice of people who aren't currently buying anything. And interestingly, that's one of the reasons why if you run ads, you're going to see a lot of older people being the ones that click. You're going to see the over 65 demographic being the lion's share of the people who are clicking on your ads, because they're not generally buying a lot of expensive things anymore. Either they're on fixed incomes or they just have all the stuff they need, or a combination of those two things. But books, man, they'll just consume books like crazy, right? Especially if you're in KU, that's perfect for them. So, and people will filter in and out of that too, right? Like you start shopping for something new on the internet and we all know all of your ads change to that thing. So unless people are really only exclusively shopping for books and or not shopping for much of anything else, will they see our ads? That's one of the reasons why the audiences are smaller than you might actually pick, which is why I do say, by the way, you should always be selecting at least a 2 million person audience in the audience builder. So that's back in here when you've got that audience size up on the right. It should be at least 2 million people. 1 million is your rock bottom, but I really think you should be going for 2. And then we also have the interest level here. I use Star Wars as my example. At the outside of this circle, we have people who maybe saw a Star Wars movie one time in the theater. Then you have people who watched a lot of the Star Wars movies, maybe a show or two. You have Star Wars fans in the pink, second, third from the middle, who seen all the movies, keeps up on a few games, read some of the books, and of course people who've consumed everything. At the very center of the circle is the people who have their own Star Wars YouTube channel of some sort. And obviously, the further out you get from that center of the circle, the less likely these people are to convert. So you've got like the audience size is affected by both just who even sees it based on what they're buying, and then you've got the core audience that's the most interested versus people who are the least interested. And Facebook likely knows. I've talked to some people at Facebook that have confirmed this, although not with great specifics because they can't. But Facebook knows sort of the level to which people are interested in things. Whether or not they're completely right in all cases, who knows, but they have like an inkling of it. So as you move further out of this, I'm really interested in this thing circle, and further up that pyramid, your ads will get more expensive, which is generally why ads get more expensive as you scale them, because you are now competing with, you're a less interesting thing to the people you're showing the ad to, or you're competing against more expensive products, or both. All right. So, of course, to do a better job of this, to make it so our ads are going to be noticed and appreciated by the people that are seeing them, we do need to speak to our audience. And you need to make sure that your creative, your ad creative is really saying the right thing to the right people. And we're going to get to that a little bit later, but that's one of the ways you can sort of combat when you try to go really wide. You're like, how do I make sure that the hardcore Star Wars fans and people who love Battlestar Galactica and Firefly are the ones that are seeing my ad and going for it? And one of the great ways to think about that is, well, what would attract me if I was seeing a Star Wars ad or some sort of cool new sci-fi show ad? Like, what's the visuals that are going to attract me? What's the storyline that's going to attract me? What elements of the storyline will attract me? And you'll have to think about that as you get into it. But when it comes to analyzing your ad, here's what matters. Only these three numbers matter really when it comes to analyzing your ad on Facebook. If you're doing direct sales ads, then you also need to care about the CPM, the cost per thousand. It's cost per mil, which in advertising means thousand. Cost per thousand impressions, because you might find you can actually see like which placements and which pieces of text and everything are all converting, and you need to look at ones that aren't converting and say, how much are these impressions actually costing me? But even so, generally your cost per result is still going to tell you whether the ad's working or not. And if you're running a traffic ad, your cost per result is a click. And if you're running a sales ad, your cost per result is how much money it costs you to get a sale. So when you're running direct sales ads, it can actually be pretty easy to tell if the ad's profitable or not, because you're like, I'm selling a $20 bundle and it's costing me $22 to make a sale. So right then and there, you're losing $2. You're actually losing a little bit more than $2 because your site's whoever's running your site is going to charge you a bit per transaction for credit card processing fees and so on. So that part's pretty easy. But if you're running traffic ads going to a retailer, it's going to be a little bit harder to tell what's a good cost per result there. But I'll kind of go into the math and how you can tell that out or suss that out. Result rate matters because result rate is basically the percentage of people that clicked on the ad divided by the percentage of people that saw the ad. So it's just like, how likely are people who see your ad to click on it and go do the thing? Result rates over 10% are fabulous. Result rates below 2% are not good. They do shift by genre. So really niche genres are going to be in the 2 to 4% range, and really popular genres can be up over the 10% range. That's when you're like first starting out at like $10 a day or so. As you scale your ad, you will always see the result rate go down because you're moving out on that circle of interest and you're moving up that pyramid and competing with people who are shopping for a lot of different things. So that's like a baseline, of 2 to 10 is sort of, well, 2 is bad, 10's above 10's great, but as you spend more and more money, you might see that those result rates drop. And likewise, you'll also see your frequency climb, and you'll probably see your cost per result climb. And frequency, by the way, again, is the number of people who saw your ad in a given time frame. All three of these metrics can kind of tell you if an ad is healthy. If you're running a standard creative ad that just has one piece of text and one image, your frequency on a 30-day period, so in the upper right of the Facebook Ad Manager, you pick how much you're looking at. Usually it defaults to either the last 30 days or the current month. So change it to the last 30 days, and that frequency number for a standard creative ad shouldn't be over 2. If it's a dynamic creative ad, it shouldn't be over 3, unless you're running a lot of image combinations. Then you can probably make it up to 4. But you do need to, well, we'll get into that a little bit later. I don't want to get ahead of myself. I have a picture that shows it later on. So basically, frequency, Under 3 if you're running dynamic creative, under 2 if you're running standard creative. Result rate, higher is better. In many regards with result rate, you're competing against yourself. If you're like, wow, I can generally make ads that have an 8% result rate, and this one has a 3% result rate, clearly either I've made creative that my ad creative is something that this audience doesn't care about, or the audience I picked doesn't care about what I'm selling. So it's really like, can you continue to get better result rates? Can you continue to get like at least what your standard result rate is, while still accurately representing your book? If you're like, well, you could have an ad that says click here for a free pony, and you're going to get a great result rate, but that doesn't mean you're going to sell many books off that ad. And then cost per result. Of course, speaking in US dollars here, and you can convert as needed. Anything over 20 cents per click, the ad may have problems, or maybe your spend's high. Once you get up over like $50 a day, it's hard to keep your cost per result under 20 cents per click. So that's worth keeping in mind. But generally, you want it to be under that 20 cents per click, ideally in the low teens. Although the more niche your book is, the harder it will be to get a lower result rate. And again, in many ways, you're competing against yourself. If you're like, wow, last few ads I made have like a 10% cost per click, and this one has a 19-cent cost per click. What did I do wrong? Is my audience too small? Am I putting too much text on my image? Because if you put too much text on the image, Facebook will charge you more for that ad. What is it that's doing it? And then also when you're looking at ads to scale, these numbers matter too, because your cost per result's always going to climb, your result rate's always going to drop, and your frequency will increase as you scale an ad. You want to find the ads that have the best numbers. Like if I'm looking at 2 ads and all of the things are equal, and one's at 15 cents per click and one's at 11 cents per click, I'm going to scale the one that costs less. So that's something to look for too. You're trying to build ads that have great result rates, low costs, and those are going to be the ones that you scale, provided they're converting, which we will talk about next. All right, so when you're trying to find out, is your CPR, cost per result, profitable, you need to find out what your conversion looks like. So the first thing you need to know is you need to know your read-through, your sell-through value. I have software out there called Solaris that can do this. There's author helper tools, formerly called Reader Links, that can do this. I have a spreadsheet that I've put out there for ages that can do this. If you get the Help My Facebook Ads Suck book, there's a link to the spreadsheet in there as well, and I'm sure it's circulating around too. And it can tell you, when you sell book 1 in your series, how much money do you make in read-through? Actually, I have a picture that will speak 1,000 words. So this is the graph up top is what Solaris looks like. So you can see book 1 got 328 reads or sales, and it got the equivalent of 310 reads. And then book 2 got 98 sales and the equivalent of 207 reads. And that's actually a pretty standard way that things go with books. But the adjusted reads value means that every time you sell book 1 with the read-through that I would get on this particular series, I think in this example, it's a 3-book series, my read-through value is actually only $5.76. So that means that if it costs me more than $5.76 to sell a book, I'm losing money. And Solaris will tell you that. And down below is a picture of the spreadsheet that I made, and it also will give you the same information as well. So you can find that out. You can find out how much money you make when a book sells, and you can be like, wow, it cost me more than that or less than that to sell a book, and you'll know if you're profitable. So you can determine how many clicks it takes to sell a book or to get a borrow, and you can do that with the Amazon attribution links. Or if you have a book that doesn't sell, it is currently not selling at all, you can sort of just assume that, like, okay, I was selling 0 books and I started running an ad. I can assume that all the sales are coming from my ad, and you can also kind of figure out the math that way too. And you just multiply your average cost per result. So if it's costing you 20 cents per click, and it takes 30 clicks to sell a book, well, that's 0.2 times 30 is 6. Well, that $6 is higher than my 576 in my example. I need to either try and get ads to convert better, or I need to get ads that are cheaper. Like if I had that exact same book and exact same, well, maybe not exact same ad, but I tweaked the ad to get my cost per result down to 10 cents per click. Well, now it only costs me $3 to sell the book. I'm doubling my money almost. So that little change can have a big impact it's not a little change, but it's, in the grand scheme of things, it's 10 cents per click. It's 10 cents. And you don't think it's a big deal, but that's the difference between losing money and doubling your money. All right. So we're going to skip on past this. No, I have the same slide in here twice. And this is actually just a little graph, a little chart I have here, kind of showing like how the breakdown can work, all the way from, in this example, the series read-through value is $6.50, and you can see that 25 cents at 30 clicks, losing $1, and then all the way down to 10 cents, making a sale every 10 clicks. Now you're making $5.50. This one's almost doubling its money. So you can kind of see how just small incremental changes can move you into profitability and then into greater profitability as well. So super helpful, I think, just to think about it that way. All right. And then there's some other caveats with cost per result information. If your cost per result is over 30 cents, the ad's got a serious issue. Like, I tend to think of 20 cents as my threshold these days, but I will sometimes go over that if it's a high spend or I'm getting just really good conversion. Like, I'll do the math. I'll be like, wow, I'm like selling a book every 7 clicks. I can handle the 30-cent cost per, or 20-cent cost per click. Maybe I can even handle the 30-cent cost per click. But the ad probably still is an issue if it's up over 30 cents per click. And it may not scale that well, or it might start getting more expensive and die out. So you need to keep probably be making a new ad when you have an ad that gets that high. You need to be finding something new to replace it with. If your cost per result is below 5 cents, oftentimes it means that the ad could be showing up to a bad audience. I've had a couple scenarios where I'm pretty sure that this is a bunch of bots clicking on it, or every now and then when you create an ad, instead of picking your country that you're in, Facebook will pick worldwide as the audience. And worldwide means exactly what you think. The difficult thing, though, is you've made a link to the US or UK or Canadian or Australian or German, whatever, Amazon site, but your budget is consumed by people in India and the Philippines before people in the Western Hemisphere even wake up. And then it's gone. So, and even when they do click, they're not able to buy because they're not landing on a site, on a store in their country. It might not just be those countries. I'm just sort of throwing out Philippines and India as an example, although India will definitely chew up a lot, no matter what other countries are in the mix there. So don't pick worldwide. And actually, sometimes if you get on the phone with Facebook reps, they'll tell you to do that. Don't do it. I see people all the time that do it, and nothing but regret comes from choosing a worldwide audience. Even though there is actually a store for India, and if they had clicked your US, for example, your US link, and they land on the Indian store, they don't tend to buy a lot of books. And I don't think KU is available. KU is available in India, but they don't tend to pick up a lot of English books regardless. And if your mainstream fiction sweet spot is going to be 8 to 18 cents, and then genre fiction, you might see yourself getting up over 25 cents per click. But again, as you get better at this and picking out your audiences and building creative, you should be able to get that under 25 cents per click when you're first starting out at like a $5, $10, $15 spend. It might be climbing back up into that once you crank your spend up even higher, but that's where you'll need to know what your profitability looks like. Okay, placements. So the conventional wisdom used to be, and this, you select placements at the very bottom of the ad set page. The conventional wisdom used to be that, oh my goodness, do I really only have 11, 12 minutes left? Shoot, I need to rocket through this thing. To only show things on the Facebook feed, all of the different placements sell except for Marketplace. Always turn off Marketplace with your placements. For whatever reason, that placement is just garbage. But I've seen every other placement sell books. You just need to keep an eye on your cost per result in the different placements to make sure that it is a cost per result that you can accept. You could be getting tons of clicks and even sales off of Instagram stories or something like that. But if it's like a 30-cent cost per result, you're losing money on those. So you can just turn off those different placements. Let's talk about ad creative. I'm a really big believer in using what's called dynamic creative. You turn on dynamic creative on the ad set page, and it lets you put in multiple images, multiple pieces of text, and then multiple headlines for your ad. And you can kind of test them all together at once and then prune out the ones that aren't working and or are too expensive, and kind of get an ad. It lets you do what's called multivariate testing and try a lot of options. And then you can actually just prune out the ones that aren't working by deleting those options, which doesn't affect the other versions. So if you have like 3 pieces of text and one of them is expensive and no one ever clicks on it, or when they do, it's too expensive, or whatever. If you delete that piece of text, it won't affect the social proof, the likes, comments, shares on any other possible combination of the ad using other text. So you can prune these out. And you do that by clicking the breakdown button in the upper right. It might say breakdown, and it might just kind of look like some horizontal bars. And you scroll down to the bottom and you choose by dynamic creative element, and it will give you all of the data for each thing you have in your ad. And we're talking a bit about direct sales here, because a lot of those percentages and everything I was throwing at you were for traffic ads. With direct sales, you can actually see that your cost per result is very different. Instead of like being in the cents, it's this number per purchase. And that can be really useful. It can actually make it very easy to assess right away if your ads are too expensive. And you also then want to change to showing cost per outbound click, because sometimes an ad can kind of go sideways. You're like, wow, this ad was working and now it's not. It's too expensive, and you might realize like, oh wow, my cost per outbound click climbed dramatically. Or you might be like, you know what, it's a high outbound click, but I've got this great result rate giving me a low cost per result. I'm cool with that. So it's actually a lot easier to analyze your ads when you're running this stuff. And to be honest, this setup here, direct sales ads and measuring cost per result as an actual monetary transaction compared to the sale price of a product, is actually what Facebook's built for, or what they've built for now. It's really how they've been honing everything. Okay, so I thought that there's one rate to rule them all. Oh, I thought that there's one rule to rule them all. I can't read my own stuff I wrote. But yeah, if there is one rate you're looking at when you're running sales ads, it's going to be the result rate. You know, this is really going to tell you how well your ad's performing and how well it's working with the audience that you have going. And you can have ads that are profitable with terrible result rates, but they may not scale very well. So you have to keep that in mind. Like you might be like, well, I've got this ad with like a 4% result rate that is profitable. Like that's cool, but it might not scale that high. Or maybe it's that low because you've already scaled it. You're like $100, $200 a day. And yes, you can take ads up that high. I work with authors where we've taken ads clear up to an individual ad up to $800 or $900 a day and actually have them be profitable. So, and their result rates did go down quite a bit as a result. But these are sort of your numbers that you're going to look at before you start to scale and where you would expect to see them. It is rare to see contemporary romance get up to 20%, but it can happen. All right. So the question is, why does your result rate suck? Because you're like, damn, like I can't get it high at all, and my cost per result climbs. And like my ads only last a couple of weeks, and my cost per result, like per link click, gets really high. And it's, you know, generally these two things are tied together. And there's two of them. One, the ad is not resonating with the audience, or the audience is wrong for the ad. I always say examine the audience first. Just because, like, sometimes we try crazy things. We're like, I don't know, I'm just going to throw a bunch of authors in here or something like that. Or I'll just pick a random slew of TV shows. And then you realize that, oops, when you narrowed by Kindle, you narrowed by people who work for Kindle, you know, or something like that. Like, make sure that you didn't make any mistakes, or you aren't like throwing the kitchen sink at it. And then you can look at the ad afterward. And on the ad, if your ad isn't working, your image is the number one culprit. It's much less likely that it's the text. Oh, I went right away from that. I'm just like, it's your image. Your image is the problem. I'm going to go back to that because I want to talk about that just a little bit more in my remaining few minutes. I don't remember how many slides do I have. Oh my goodness. I still have a few slides to go. I should stop talking about that. Yeah, so when you're showing an image, you have to imagine what people are doing when they're seeing your ad. They're doom scrolling Facebook. They're just like, they're bed rotted, whatever. They're just zoned out. Your image needs to grab their attention and make them stop and look at it and then want more. They want to know why that thing in the image is there. It makes them happy. It makes them curious. It makes them unsettled. Whatever your book is trying to do, you want the image to do that. You want people to feel a thing when they see your image. Your image also doesn't need a lot of text because you've got tons of text above and below the image, and people are trained to look for the closest piece of bold text to that image, and they're going to read that. That is generally the headline, and it's under the ad. And there's a reason why Facebook puts the headline under the ad, because we look at the image and then we look down. We're trained to look down, and we're looking for the next piece of bold text, and that's the headline. So your headline has to double down and sell on that. And then if they're they're either they're going to click at that point, or then they're not interested and they scroll on, or they go up and read the text above. And that's why that's where the order goes in: image, headline, text above. So if your ad's not working, you need to try some other images, and you put too much text on the image. You don't want your ad to look like an ad. You want it to look like something that gives people a feeling. And ads that look like ads don't give people generally good feelings. So keep that in mind. All right. We are going to skip past this, and we're going to talk about conversion. The prior thing was just all about how frequency is calculated, which we kind of talked about before. All right, conversion. This brings us into the Amazon attribution link system. This is something they rolled out about a year and a half ago to authors. If you go into AMS, or advertising.amazon.com is where you can go to sign up if you haven't done it before. On the left-hand side, there will be like a little graph icon. And if you click on that, a menu slides out and you can choose the menu option that says attribution links, I think, or Amazon attribution, one of the two. And that will take you to a page where you can actually make special tracking links. And anybody who's read an older version of my book knows that I actually had like a full page rant at one point in the book, because I used to use affiliate links for this, which is against Amazon's terms of service, but it was the only way we could tell if an ad was even working with like definitive proof. I said, just give us a tracking system and we'll stop doing this. And they did. It's arguably not, it's not perfect. It misses about 50% to 100% again. So like if for this one, there's 154 purchases, it's missing somewhere between 75 and 154 purchases, and it's missing easily double the reads that this ad probably got. But I can still just sort of determine roughly if the ad's working, and I can compare ads against each other, because even though it misses a lot of data, the reasons for that are mostly human driven, and therefore it misses the data equally. And so you can just sort of assess ad to ad. You can make direct comparisons and see what works best. And the number that I'm looking for the most, if I'm authors in KU, is how many pages read they're getting per click. So I take the KENP read and I divide it by click-throughs, and I want a number bigger than 10. That tells me I have an ad that's very likely working, so long as it's a series that has 3 or more books and it's getting good page read. If it's a standalone, you need over 20 pages read per click for it to be profitable. And so the math is just this: it's just reads divided by clicks, should be greater than 10. That's what you want to see. And then if you're doing direct sales, you divide your clicks by the number of sales, and you want a number less than 50. You should be taking less than 50 clicks to sell a book. 50 clicks is, for most series, is like the profitability threshold where the books are full priced. If your first in series is free, you need this number to be like 3, less than 3. But if you're charging money for book 1, which I think you should be doing, you need to be making a sale in less than 50 clicks, ideally less than 30. But this, for most series, is your break-even point. And you can get all that information by just simply looking at these numbers here, and just, a simple bit of division, reads divided by clicks. How many pages will tell me how many pages I'm getting read per click, and then clicks divided by sales will tell me how many sales I'm getting per click. And if you're a KU author, this number is going to be atrocious. It's going to be up over 100, and that's fine, because your KU, your sales should just be gravy. If you're in KU, it should be your KU money that's making it for you. All right. And then profit, we're going to talk a little bit about profit. And I have this crazy thing to say before we wrap up: ROI is a lie. A lot of times people really worry a lot about their ROI. They're like, well, this other person gets 300% ROI, and I'm only getting like 150 or something like that. It's terrible. I need to turn off my ads. And that's not true. So, well, I mean, it is true and it's not true at the same time. So let's say I've spent $100 on ads and I have $400 in sales. And in scenario B, I've spent $800 on ads and I have $1,400 in sales. Now, in this scenario, in B, I've made $600 in profit. And in this scenario, I've made $300 in profit, right? So obviously you want the thing where you walk away with $600 in profit. However, scenario B is 75% ROI and scenario A is 300% ROI. But look at the profit number. So volume if you sell more things at a lower ROI, you can make more money. So don't get too hung up on ROI. It's not the be all end all, and you can run profitable ads, that are very profitable, making you a lot of money without focusing too much on ROI. It's like, oftentimes it's just a back padding thing. It's like, oh, look at me, I got a high ROI, but I'll take a lower ROI and more cash any day, So I did it. I've finished in 45 minutes. It's always a fun experiment to see if I can actually pull that off. Okay, good. The screen sharing stopped. Now to stop PowerPoint. So I thought I was going to do better and finish a little bit earlier, but I never actually managed to do that. So I don't know why I would think that. But if anybody has any questions or anything and they want to chat, I'm just going to head up onto the deck of the ship and you can ask me any questions you have. I believe that they make the slides available. I sent them a copy, so I think that's what it was for. So you can grab the slides from everybody, from the folks running the conference. And I hope you guys have a fabulous day. Thank you very much. Thanks.